Welcome to this live YouTube on your career search. Really appreciate you tuning in. If you're tuning in now or watching the recording, I get asked quite a bit by both friends, family, CEOs of companies. Actually, a lot of CEOs of companies have really good people in their network and in their families who are looking for better jobs, right? So they'll often come to me or they'll say, "Hey, I've got this person, and there's only so much I can do." Right? I can't help out everybody. So this is a really good chance for people to ask questions and for me to add some of the value that I've seen in my over 30 years of job search, HR, and specifically headhunting for the last 20 years. So, really, one of the things that people overlook when looking for a job is how to network, how to truly reach out and meet new people and find the hidden job market. And that's might be a bit of a buzzword, but what is the hidden job market? There's the jobs that you see on LinkedIn and Indeed and other platforms. Um, they're they're jobs that I'd say are further down the cycle, right? In sales, we talk about top of funnel and bottom of funnel. If a job isn't posted on LinkedIn or Indeed or on a company's career website, there's a really good chance that that job is already filled. They've already got somebody in mind. It might not be formally, oh, they know this is the person they're going to hire, but there's probably an internal referral. Somebody who works for the company knows somebody, or there could even be a promotion, but they want to make sure that there's nobody else out there, or they want to stick to their process, right? So, jobs that are posted online can have hundreds or thousands of applicants, and there can be some internal applicants or some people referred who are kind of going to float to the top, right? So those jobs are definitely worth applying for if you're qualified and if you hopefully have a bit of a network to help you maybe get a leg up on the other people who are applying. So definitely apply for jobs that are posted, but it can be a heart wrenching experience. I know there's people searching for jobs who've sent out hundreds of applications, even thousands. There was a fellow who said they sent out over 3,000 applications. He said he was overqualified for almost all of them. Uh, you know, I'm not sure, where what the authenticity of that was, but um, there's definitely people sending a lot of resumes without actually getting interviews or specifically getting the job offer they want, right? And I think one of the keys is, have they done the networking that helps them get the interview and the job offer? And if they haven't, what are the steps that they can do to really build a network and eventually get that job offer and really build the network? So, um, I've got a few things that I think are really going to help you with that. And, starting with what are the steps that you can do to network? And the first thing I would say is make a list. Pull out a pen and paper. If you're amazing with spreadsheets, start a list on a spreadsheet. But really think, who do I know? And really friends, family, classmates, neighbors, um, clubs, who do you know? And for me, a big part of my world is I play soccer every week, right? So good group of people, all around my age. um, they're a really good network. I drop my kids off at school every day. Another huge network, and actually there's two schools. My daughter's in a Montessori, so that's a huge network. And then her school, or my son's school, an elementary school, that's another network. And if you arrive early, so you drop your kid off a few minutes early, you see the other parents there, you ask them how their week is going, you ask them what do they do for work. It can be a really good way to start to build that network. And it actually kicks off your day, right? So lots of people don't have kids, but if you do have kids, that's probably one of the first things you can do on your job search or helping your career is drop your kids off early, start asking people. If you can't drop your kids off every day, get to the parent teacher nights, get to the community nights that your school puts on, and really try and really build that network. So, what and then neighbors as well, right? Try and be, if you see somebody out mowing their lawn, maybe stop and say, how's their day going? Ask some questions about their garden. Really ask some questions about that person personally, and that'll start the dialogue and say, hey, I just wanted to find out, do you know anybody in the field I'm looking for a new role in? And that's a lot better approach than say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job." It's like, "I'm looking for somebody who is in this field or works for these companies. Do you know of anybody?" And that's after you generally show some interest in the other person, right? There's not a lot of people who really take note of people and are genuinely interested. But if you ask them questions about what they're doing, how they got there, how their kids are doing, and really listen, don't be thinking, oh, I got to ask that question about my job search. It's okay if you don't, the first or the second time that you meet somebody, you don't have a chance to actually ask about your career and your job search and who they might know. Because if you're interested in them, eventually it will turn to, hey, what do you do? What are you interested in? So be very purposeful in networking, where you can meet people and how. So definitely trying to get out to a social thing. I'd say at least 3 times a week, and definitely every day. A rule of threes I like to use is 3 people every day, and 3 events a week, right? To grow your network. So I think that's a really, really key way to work. 3 people every day. If you're unemployed, who are the 3 people I'm going to call today and reconnect with? Who am I going to send messages to, because I don't have their phone number? Who am I going to follow up and thank? Right? That's a really important thing. The CEO of a tourism board that I know, he's off to see his son in another country, and I said to him on Facebook, 'cause he announces he's going to see his son, and I've met his son and stuff. He makes effort to fly to another country every few months or every month to see his son, and making that kind of effort is amazing as any parent. And I said to him, "You're a great dad," kind of gave him that praise, because really we don't say it enough that people are great in what they do, especially when it comes to being a parent or raising, helping out with their people's parents, or volunteering around the community. So giving those compliments and really noticing what other people do can be a really good thing that helps build your network as well, right? So getting out to those clubs, showing up early, asking people what they're doing, I think is a really great idea. And once you have a chance to find out about somebody who's might have some connections in your industry or in the career you're interested in, asking them, would you mind if I did an informational interview? Can I get 15 minutes of your time? And really asking them, how did they get to be in that role? What companies or organizations hire for these roles? What are the things they like the best about them? And what are the challenges? Right. So being ready with some good questions is important for every interaction, but also for informational interviews. And a lot of this comes from What Color is Your Parachute? And it's a book that's been published for, I think, over 30 years, but definitely over 20 years. But some questions that I think are worth asking is, how did you get started in your field, and what has kept your interest? What has kept you passionate? Right? So very open-ended, purposeful questions about somebody and their career is makes a really big difference. And what do you enjoy most about your current work or organization, right? And most people will find something positive because you're thinking about that, right? Um, and that really gets them thinking positively about you, some association if you're asking questions that really help them think positively. And then what trends are you seeing in the industry these days is also a good question. Lots of people are going to say AI, but what about AI? How is it being used? Or in the case of the construction industry, it might be that mortgage rates are rising, or there's not a lot of pre-sales related to residential condos. So lots of things that can really be happening in industry where they can share their insight, you can learn from them, and also kind of build that relationship, continue to build that relationship. And then really finishing off that that informational interview is, who else should I talk to? Who else would be a good contact for me to get to know about this industry, or somebody that you really respect? So, really asking for that next thing, and not asking them for a job, right? And not asking them who do they think is hiring, but who else should they talk to? And then you can also follow up with that person the next day or later on the week, send them a thank you. That really goes a long ways. I know somebody sent me a gift card. I don't need gift cards. And I know if you're unemployed, you really shouldn't be sending out gift cards. But I think it was a Starbucks gift card for like $10. But I really appreciated that and remember that. But I remember every thank you that somebody has given me. Those people really stick in our minds. So doing a thank you after every referral, every informational interview, every time you've kind of built that network, and really thinking that this is two-way, right? If there was something that really stuck with you, resonated, um, from that informational interview, if they had a question that you could do the research on and follow up with them for, or show them a way to use AI, or any number of things, that two-way relationship and continuous follow-up is makes a big difference, right? Um, there was a fellow who reached out to me, amazing HVAC engineer. I had a great kind of informational interview with him to help him on his career. And then I saw 3 months later or 4 months later, I saw somebody I know is actually hiring for a similar role. And unfortunately, that fellow hadn't done any follow up with me, and I don't have his contact information. We've got over 200,000 people we've worked with in the past. And I bet you if I spent an hour actually focusing on it, I'd be able to be like, oh, there he is. Give him a quick call. Hey, are you still looking for a role? I know this company that's hiring. So that follow up, at least every 3 months. But after you meet with somebody, any chance you have to follow up and thank them, that's the number one. And number two is, if there's a reason to follow up, you've seen something interesting that since you've talked to them, you've you've learned something new related to their industry. Just sharing that information is super key. So really think follow up is key in your networking. Now, one of the other things that people might leave off, and one of the things where what color in your parachute might fall down is kind of that online search, how to leverage your network on different social media and with email and other technology as well, right? So the things that you need to be doing these days, I think, to be successful in your job search is that personal phone calls and in person. I think that really makes a big difference. If you're trying to find a job in another community, that's a huge challenge, right? But locally, I've given you a few things as well. So if you're trying to find a job in another community, then you're really going to have to leverage things like LinkedIn, Facebook, and then also one of the communication mediums that we often use in our daily lives, text messaging, WhatsApp, or any of the number of platforms out there, but definitely text messaging. So direct messaging to connect with people, I think is really key. It's one thing to drop an email, but I get literally, literally thousands of emails every week. Sometimes it's definitely hundreds every day. I think there are days when it slips over 1,000 if you include all the email, newsletters, and spam. I get about over a dozen spam, specifically targeted and AI modified, trying to sell me things. So I'd recommend that you follow up both with text messages and email, right? So utilizing multiple things and multiple times, right? If somebody's bothered by it, they'll just say stop, right? People unsubscribe from things. I had a cold text messaging person. They were trying to sell the wrong thing to the wrong business owner. And I just did stop in capital letters. And if somebody is bothered by it, you can say, hey, do you mind if you think somebody's bothered by it, do you mind me texting you so often? Or do you mind that I followed up, 3 weeks after our coffee? I really appreciate your time. And, I just want to be conscious of that. So that permissions based follow up, I think, is key, and using these other platforms. So if you do meet with somebody, connect with them on LinkedIn, thank them again there, right? So if you've connected with them by phone, and then send them a follow up text message 4 days later or early on the next week. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Um, it might be a little bit hard to find people on LinkedIn, but if you do what's called a Boolean search, so if you search on Google, but you search the site LinkedIn for that person's name and the community they live in or the company, you should be able to find them and send them a connection request. LinkedIn has a lot of paid features. I don't recommend them unless you really have that disposable income. You're working in a pretty good job and you're paying your bills. If you're unemployed, you can ask on LinkedIn and you can ask your network if they know anybody who's got a free premium account. But key to building a network is connecting with at least 100 people, and then as you're getting further on in your career, building that to a network of 1,000 people will help. Uh, but if you're not able to find people on LinkedIn, use Google to search on LinkedIn for people, and you can send I think a few connection requests without a premium account every week. Um, Upgrading to a premium account, you can send about 100 connection requests. But regardless, you're really trying to find people's email address, which you can also find and their phone numbers through Boolean search as well. So, really recommend that you plan to take that job search offline and really phone people, email them, try and text message them, and then try and grab them for an informational interview, and not ask them for a job, but ask who they know, ask how they got there. Really try and take that strategy. And for remote, trying to find jobs in other places, you're really going to have to become an expert in other people. So if you're approaching anybody on LinkedIn or through your Facebook network, finding something out about them and connecting that in your outreach, right? So, um, there's a mine that I'd love to work with, and I was able to find a presentation that was done last year by one of the maintenance and engineering leads there on how they measure each shovel, what concentrate of minerals are in it, to decide if they're going to process that or put that in a waste pile and move that off site. So, really specific work this person had done. And when I reach out to that person, either by email, by phone, or by LinkedIn, I can reference that and say, "Oh, I really found that interesting. How your company and specifically you have done this, right?" So it's kind of a bit of a compliment, but shows you're doing your research into them and the work they've done, right? Or if you're only on Facebook and you know that somebody works for a company but they don't know much about them, you comment about something they've done on social media or something the company has done. If you don't know anything about them, you can be like, "Oh, I really am interested in this product or the culture and values." I always go to the company's About Us page and see if they've got their values there or their mission statement and say, "Oh, I'd love to learn more about you and also the organization." Right. So, really doing your research really will differentiate you from other people who might be asking them for job search tips or a job. Right. And being interested in other people is more likely they will be interested in you and ask you questions about the job you're looking for. One of the powerful tools or powerful things beyond networking is a lot of companies have employee referral programs. I met with five entrepreneurs in definitely different businesses. And out of those five entrepreneurs, two of them had employee referral programs. Large companies often have employee referral programs where if somebody is referred by a current employee for a job, then that employee will get a referral amount or a referral bonus, right? And what that does, it often results, based on studies I've seen, in a better hire, right? So if somebody is referred to a company, they're often more productive employees and more valuable. There's a bunch of reasons behind this, but just be aware of employee referral programs, and you can ask if you have an informational interview. "Oh, did you guys have an employer referral program? Because I've been watching your career site, and if I apply for a job, would you mind if you might let me know who the hiring manager is or send my resume in for the job?" And often people will say yes because it's not up to them often to who's doing the hiring. the person doing the hiring is often somebody else, unless it's a small business. But if it's a big business, it's often a committee, and an employee referral is really going to help you possibly get an interview. Um, and when you get close to applying for a job, you can call that person up and say, "Hey, I'm applying for this job. Is there anything you think this manager might be looking for?" Or I'd like to, I'd love to chat with the manager before I apply, because then you can change and tailor your resume a bit before you apply. So really leveraging that relationship and the employee referral program. Say, "I'd love you to be the employee referral for this. Can I ask the manager a couple questions first, or can you send it in?" So really kind of work that relationship to get your resume to the top of the pile. I totally recommend that. All right. Yeah, so just definitely prepared with some open-ended questions anytime you meet people, and then have some purposeful questions when you actually meet with people. Keeping your job search organized, not just who you applied, what jobs you applied for, but who you are networking with, when you're going to follow up with them. If you're really effective at using Google Calendar or whatever calendaring method, um, or working with your notes, go ahead and keep it digital. If not, definitely having a notebook. Anytime you go to a real interview or an informational interview, taking a pen and paper and recording things. This organization is actually something a lot of employers look for. I always ask candidates in interviews, how do you keep organized for the work you're doing, right? And I'm really looking for, either I'm using a traditional organizer, or I use a calendar well, or I use what's called a customer relationship management system for sales, or project management system for projects. Whatever it is, I just want to know how people stay organized, and having a notebook in every interview, whether it's informational interview or a real interview, is a really good idea with a pen. And then you also have your questions as well, right? Oh, I've got a few questions. Can I refer to my book, right? It really makes a difference that people know you're organized and you're kind of keeping a record of things, and you're not just showing up to waste their time. You're showing up prepared. I really recommend that. All right. So that's a few tips there. Definitely be grateful and give back. Offer to help in return, right? Is open ended. Is there anything I can do for you or your network, right? And definitely, if you're asking for that, who do they know? That's really key. Who else? What other organizations do you think, right? Because that then you can start to give back as well. One of the big things I'd harp on is volunteering. Find charities. Usually, every city has a volunteer coordinating organization, Volunteer Victoria. Um, you can search for events that are going on Eventbrite, and your local community. Really, really, even as close as your block watch association. Lots of opportunities to meet lots of people, and build your network. Volunteering for charities. If you're completely unemployed, I would recommend finding a charity or an organization that's a medium size and saying, "Hey, do you have any projects you'd like to get done? Any tasks you'd like to get done?" Because one of the big things about a long job search, or getting that better job, is staying active in the area, right? That you're interested in working in, right? So if somebody's been on an executive, and they've sold their company or they've lost their job, staying involved maybe at the board level with a nonprofit or executive, or a nonprofit or a charity, is a good idea. And or working for a small business, right? Or volunteering for a small business. Are there any projects you'd like to get done but can't get to, right? And I'm not saying work 40 hours a week for somebody, but if you've lost your role, or you've got a few hours to dedicate, that could be a really great thing for your references, to be currently active. Uh, Periods of unemployment on a resume are unfortunately a red flag for a lot of employers. Some employers will pass over people. If I see somebody qualified, I definitely call them and say, "Hey, I'll take a look at your resume. Tell me about what you're doing while you're off, because that'll help me try and make sure this is a good fit for you. Or if there's something that you're doing that really help you build skills for this job, I don't want that left out, right?" But if there's blank space on a resume, you can fill it up with your volunteer role, and you don't even have to say it's volunteer. You could be like project management for disaster recovery, or uh, helping organize uh, volunteers for X project. There's lots of things that you can do to help bolster your resume through volunteer work. Charities first, nonprofits second, and then small businesses as well. You might be able to volunteer for a large corporation, but I think it's harder to get noticed than in a small business. And in this economy, almost half of jobs at any one time are with small businesses. Often they're not published. That hidden job market is a lot more, I'd say, evident in small businesses. A lot of jobs offers are made to contractors. Sometimes they're made to volunteers, but contractors are who people know before they're posted online, and a lot of people have gone through a process, right? Not everybody has an HR department with 2 to 3 people who can keep a process moving. Small businesses, if they know of somebody in their network to hire, they might just pull the trigger on you rather than having to compete with thousands of resumes. All right, I'm going to be doing these every week, so I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you, and make sure to ask any questions below that you've got about your job search, finding a better role, getting a raise, any of those things. See you on the next one.